So, you want to play Company of Heroes 3 in the Big 26. This video is going to essentially be a sort of introductory video on the 4 factions in the game, which are the United Kingdom Forces, Deutsche Afrika Korps, Whermact, and USF. And we'll start with the UKF. Now, the UKF is the easiest faction to play by far, in my humble opinion. It has a very good base roster where its battle groups for the UKF more so augment the playstyle, in the sense that it doesn't necessarily fills gaps, but it more so upgrades the faction and its options. So, for example, Polish forces that you'll see here, they have Polish Lancers, which are known as the anti-everything unit. It replaces guards with its anti-tank capabilities and its ability to dish out a lot of damage. More so that Polish Lancers are preferred. I think for the most part a lot of the battle group units in UKF are preferred over guards, with guards being not a very good unit at the minute, but we'll come to that later. More so we have land mattresses, which replace the bishop. It's a very, very strong unit over the long range, and then there's the Firefly to replace the 17-pounder, the towed 17-pounder anyways. A good heavy anti-tank unit. We'll start with UKF. So, this is your base when you start as UKF. You have 3 things to do here, essentially, in the main building. Sappers. These are the best CQC combat engineer by far, if they can close the distance. The damage is very high. They have great veterancy.
Sappers, eager as will
4
ever be.
man of 95 HP. Flamethrower, which is alright. Has a lot of good synergies with some of the battle groups like Canadians. And then there's your Sweeper, which is there to detect stealth. Repair vehicles faster, and obviously cut barbed wire. Veterancy, 35% higher as a hit, which is very good. It basically means that when the enemy is shooting at you, you are harder to hit. It sounds that simple, but I know that a lot of people, especially my friend group, have a lot of technical difficulties reading and understanding basic words. So I have to dumb this down to an IQ of about 20. As you can see at the Vet 3, an extra squadron member makes these guys assault units. They're likely to be on par with like Panzer Grenadier, Assault Grenadier without the Assault Disembark. Good repair speed, and they shoot longer. And that's what that burst length means. They shoot for longer periods of time before needing to reload or stop. That's the
orders. Royal Engineers,
basic combat
ready.
engineer unit. 308 health as well. So these guys are relatively tanky, but they are expensive. They are the most expensive combat engineer in the game at 224. And they do cost a lot to reinforce. At 29, which is quite high for a combat engineer unit. The other unit you can produce is the Vickers.
MG here, say the word. Shift in position.
Vickers is a solid
MG
unit
here, say the word.
to fill the hole in a lot of your sort of rosters, regardless of if it's early game, mid game, late game, even super late game. Sometimes I find myself Vickers to be a great option at stalling and making sure that the enemy cannot capture points. Take a look at his veterancy. Extra 25 health is really good. That puts him up to 105. They get their veteran, which allows them to essentially outgun other HMGs.
Ready into fire.
So we'll just do like a quick show.
That's a promotion.
So once they get their vet, they get a longer barrel, but their arc of fire is not as directional. So you're basically like tunneling to shoot at a unit rather than spread out.
Orders.
Do keep in mind
it,
that you lose your area suppression, so units flanking have a better time of dealing with you. Vet 3, damage reduction, extra burst, and weapon range radius makes this thing very monstrous
ready the belts.
in the late game and when you can get to those
MG ready.
That does it for the UKF. But we do also have the field infirmary. Oops. Yes,
We need space for the wounded. Infirmary coming right up.
There we go. So the UKF field infirmary is very basic and very hands-on. Very easy to know. It's 100 manpower and 15 fuel, I think. Yeah, 100 manpower, 15 fuel.
Building a field infirmary.
It does not casualty clear, so you do not get manpower back for casualty. This guy's just here for aesthetics. I don't know. I don't think you'll usually see him. And that's right, and it'll heal all the infantry around you. Do note that all medic tents and medical vehicles heal your allied units as well as your own. So when you're playing the team games, always make sure that you keep your teammates well informed of, you know, I have a medical, but do also know that when you're if it's an allied medical tent and or vehicle, you do have to manually reinforce. You cannot automatically reinforce like with your own. You have to manually reinforce the units and models that you drop in a squad. So that does it for the headquarters. There is the training center, which is another big piece of kit for the UKF. Helps them scale over the game and makes their infantry better. And not just their infantry, but their team weapons and vehicles. So, just very dumbed down version. Infantry training, 200 manpower, 30 fuel, as you can see, makes all of your infantry better. You get plus 10% accuracy, plus 10% movement speed, not movement speed, reload speed, and the squads are 10% harder to hit. And it grants 800 experience. So, for a sapper, that'll get them to vet 1 instantly. For an infantry section, it will just get them short of vet 1. And
we've got work
for
to do,
the other
lads.
units, it's
ready for orders.
Because there's
Stand to, lads. We're needed.
Team weapon training. Grants 800 veterancy, so that'll instantly level your Vickers and your mortar.
We're roaring to go.
But not your 6-pounder and 17-pounders. By the way, you have to be veterans who want to get these bonuses, I'm fairly certain. So, gives them plus 20 health and 15% fire rate. So, you can imagine that these guys will go up to like 135, 140 health-ish. They become very difficult to deal with just basic mortars if they're constantly like, moved around, shoot and scoot sort of. Very tanky, definitely a sort of slept-on machine gun, but machine guns are also sort of difficult to get proper use out of sometimes, depending on the matchups. Also, yep, your mortars too. Almost forgot about them. The UKF mortars, to be honest, are not that great. They're very sort of hit and miss sometimes. The barrage ability is sort of whatever. The specs could do, but their veterancy is also very bad. Or not very bad, but it's not as good as the other mortars from the other factions. Also, a quick word of note, this goes for all indirect, but as you can see, the distance away from the mortar increases the circle, which means your scatter is going to get bigger. So the closer you are, the more accurate you are. The further you are, the less accurate you are. The same applies with smoke, so keep that in mind. Now, light vehicle training, you can see it grants 1200 veterancy, rate of fire, 25% rate of fire, and 25% ability recharge. And this will apply your dingo, your Humber armored car, and your Stuart, as well as your bishops and your CMP trucks. Which is solid. If you're, I typically get infantry training after my first light vehicle. If that's a Humber, then yeah, that's fine and dandy. Straight into infantry training, or if I want to be a bit more safe, I'll get a 6-pounder or some form of additional anti-tank, and then I'll get infantry training. But it depends. Team weapon training, as soon as you get your sort of second 6-pounder, or if you've got multiple team weapons like a mortar and an MG, yeah, I can see this being the case. It's very cheap too. It's 150 manpower, 25, so definitely don't be afraid to pick it up. Light vehicle training, if you have multiple Stuarts, I tend to go LV training. I don't tend to make I don't tend to go like Humber, Polston, often, if at all. I just don't think it's very good. But Humber into Stuart's also really good too. In which case you can also pick up light vehicle training, and then you have your armoured vehicle training, which applies to Crusader, Matilda, and Grant. Do keep in mind that all these trainings do affect the battle group counterparts as well. With armoured vehicle training, you get 1,250 experience, 10% accuracy, 10% reload speed, and 10% weapon pen. And penetration can be pretty important for the UKF vehicles, especially the upgunned 2-pounder on the Crusader 2 and the Matilda, as well as the Grunt's 2-pounder as well. I think it's a 2-pounder. But anyways, that covers the basic UKF quarters and training centre, and that's only like sort of the tip of the surface. So there's a lot to digest. But moving on. Next, after your headquarters, this is your tier 1 structure. This is your section command post. This is the first building you'll ever make as UKF. You need it to progress to platoon and company command posts, and this is where you'll get your generalist units. The units you're, I dare say, going to make the most of. So, starting with your infantry section, which are these guys here. 5-man, 95 health, which in comparison is pretty good.
We got orders, lads.
Arguably the second best, if not the best, mainline out at the moment. The 260 manpower and their performance and scaling, they're incredibly great. They come with 3 upgrades. So you have your Recce package, as you can see on the screen, upgrades the squad with 2 scoped rifles, and it gives you a flare every 180 seconds, so you can see vision around you. It also makes you a bit more accurate, as you can see here. Scoped rifles, bearing in mind you only get 2. This does not replace every rifle in the squad. You'll get 2 rifles, which give you plus 25% accuracy versus units in cover, which is, on paper, it sounds amazing. But when you compare it to the Bren is much better, but we'll get to that in a moment. It also gives you the forward artillery barrage, which, with the 25-pounder in your base that you'll always have, you don't need to upgrade or anything for this, you'll always get it.
Quiet down and listen up.
The 25-pounder will do a barrage, towards the enemy position or towards where your flares are, even.
Present and accounted for,
But do bear
sir.
in mind that this does take into effect of scatter as well, just like the mortar. It might not be as easy to conclude though.
Maybe we could slip into the major's stocks there. Always
And then
eager
we
to
are
serve.
moving on. We have the boys AT rifle. So the AT rifles, they give you
Pay
2
attention, lazy buggers.
AT rifles. They're good at sort of zoning, in the sense that you don't actively hunt vehicles for these guys. It's not incentivized. However, it does give you the anti-vehicle capacity. It helps you ward off light vehicles. Typically against medium vehicles, it won't do as much, but it's sort of okay. And then the heavier vehicles, or the vehicles with higher sort of frontal armor, it will just bounce and they'll be completely useless, and you'll essentially just have a worse base section. Something to note about these guys: their anti-infantry performance as of Dare and Defy has been heavily reduced. So these guys are not just sections with benefits. They're kind of whatever. But they're highly specialized. And typically I don't find myself buying this. Maybe if I'm against Siegebreaker and I'm going against a Flampanzerwagen, I might pick this up if my home bulletin's a bit late. But otherwise, I don't typically factor this too much, especially with DAC now. Not making as many 250 openings. I'm also leaning into the heavy Panzer Grenadier sort of opening and playstyle. And then there's the Bren. The Bren is the weapon that you're mostly, if not always, going to be buying with your sections. It's a good LMG, gives you great firepower. As you can see, it's the most effective at long range, which is true, and it also does a lot better into cover, but it does not stay there. So the Bren is great. For 90 munitions, this thing will help your section scale amazingly, especially into the late game against other mainlines like Jaegers with scopes and Panzer Grenadiers, especially with infantry training. A good sort of tip to keep in mind is you always want to be getting your Bren sections, or you want to be giving the Brens to sections with the highest amount of veterancy. So let's say you have 3 sections, one has 800 XP, one has 650, and one has 0. You always want to give your Bren to the section with the highest veterancy, so they get the most out of the weapon. And essentially it gets better performance, and it just does way better in general. And I think that's really it. You have rifle grenades, which are used to be unique and now is more so sort of whatever. But the rifle grenade's very good. It's faster than other grenades in terms of, I want to say travel time. I don't think it is as fast, but it's very good. It's very strong. I wouldn't spam these, just because you want to get to your Brens as fast as possible. But if you have the opportunity to use your rifle grenade, I'd definitely take it. You also have the anti-tank grenade. As you can see, it does additional damage at veterancy 2. It applies crew shock, not to be confused with engine critical, or engine damage as it's more commonly known. But it applies crew shock, which makes the vehicle slower. If the vehicle gets snared, which is what this is commonly referred as, the anti-tank grenade, it's called a snare. If it gets snared and it falls below 50% health, it'll go engine damage. It'll make the vehicle a lot slower. It makes it a lot more vulnerable and a lot easier to kill. This is also the same if it already has crew shock. So the crew shock is the little triangle that's yellow. Crew critical or engine critical is the red triangle. So if a vehicle has crew shock and you snare it again, It doesn't matter how much HP you have. It could be at max health, and you could just double snare. It'll cause engine critical, and it'll be in the same state as if it was under 50% HP and getting snared. The last thing to know about sections is their veterancy. Now, the veterancy is sort of meh, to be honest. It's not as good as the other mainland's veterancy. However, it can be good when you're sort of playing a stagnated sort of playstyle, where you're going to be constantly in cover with these guys, which is heavily emphasized because they have a lower HP and model count compared to the other mainlands. But they get extra accuracy, which means they'll hit more of their shots, and it definitely helps against units that are harder to hit, or units that are higher veterancy than you, which is where they get their harder to hit bonus from. But I wouldn't be going out of my way to constantly get a value out of this, because this is only to units out of cover, it's not units in cover as well. We touched on the mortar already, but it's essentially just a piece of utility that's used to counter enemy team weapons and sometimes other mortars, depending on your conditions and situation. The further away from the barrage zone you are, the increased scatter rate happens. It has entrenchment, which is okay, but like I said with the section, I'm not going out of my way to entrench my unit because it can't move while it's entrenched, and frankly it makes this unit a lot easier to hit because you know they're not going to be sort of moving. The last thing in the section command post, aside the grenade package, by the way, you do have to tech grenades unless you're Whermact, is the dingo. This trusty little thing.
Eager to go.
So it has 4.5 frontal and 4.25 rear. Extremely durable unit. Very good at harassment. Very fast. There's a detector too. It's also a very good utility unit if you can keep it alive in the late game. And overall, it's just a very, very helpful unit. Now, it is expensive. When in reference to an infantry section, that's 260. And a mortar is 260. It is 5 more manpower, which better not be a big deal. But remember that this unit doesn't scale into the late game like a section. And thus, this essentially becomes a heavily sort of utility unit. Things to know about the dingo.
Scout car here.
It is a vehicle, so it doesn't follow the traditional sense compared to the infantry, in the sense that you have to reinforce it. Using a sapper or a similar unit that is able to repair, essentially just heal its hit points back to full, and repairing costs you nothing, and the main advantage you get out of the dingo is that you're doing manpower damage whilst receiving technically no damage at all. And manpower it can be very important to certain units. Certain units, like I touched over earlier, cost more to reinforce, and this affects the manpower economy, which I will go over in a later sort of portion of the video. Now, with the section command post out of the way, now we get into the juicy area, being the platoon command post. So, the platoon command post, as of without the text even, you have 3 base options, and the first option is the 6-pound anti-tank gun. Now, it's a generic anti-tank gun, but it's good. Right? There is no sort of bad AT gun. All AT guns are relatively equal, I feel, with a couple of exceptions. And it does its job exceptionally well. This will help you fight all light vehicles. A light vehicle can never bounce this thing. It can miss, but it'll never bounce a 6-pounder. A medium vehicle has a slight chance. I'm not sure the maths behind it, but a medium can bounce it. And a heavy has a very good chance of bouncing. The 6-pounder has entrenchment as well, which is unfortunate.
Aye, we're ready.
And something to note,
We're raring to go.
especially with like
What you
all-AT
got for us?
guns and some other sort of weapons, you can use your
Scout car,
ultralights,
here.
your dingo, maybe a couple of half-tracks, the CMP truck, which we'll touch on in a moment.
Scout car,
You
here.
can tow these.
Orders.
You
Jump
can tow
to
these
it, lads.
weapons
Grab that gear and no guff.
using
Scout car,
your light vehicles. So if I just
Scout
decrew
car,
it now,
here.
you can see I have a tow heavy
Roger
weapon.
that. Come
Your
on.
dingo can tow this thing. So if you ever get into a situation where you kill the enemy's AT gun, or you lose your own, but it's sort of safe, but you have no real way to
We
recreate,
finished our orders.
you can use your
Heading to our
dingo,
destination now.
and you can carry this thing away. And you can bring it back
Scout
to
car, yeah.
your CMP trucks or your
Light
medical
vehicle,
half
take your
tracks,
stations. We're heading out.
and you can
Dropping the tow here.
recruit.
Send your message.
Another thing I sort of forgot to mention on the dingo, which on this mistake, there's two utility options. So the basic one is medical supplies. It'll heal the models in a unit.
Pay attention,
It will not
lazy
restore
buggers.
models. A dead unit can only be restored by your field infirmary, CMP trucks, other reinforcement medical vehicles.
Scout car, yeah.
It'll heal the models to the original value, which can be very good, especially with units that have not a lot of health,
Not had orders in use.
but all their
Sappers
models.
ready.
It can save you a lot of manpower over the course of the game. And it's
Scout car,
especially
yeah.
helpful early. But it also has two other abilities. So you have your barrage, which we touched on in the recce section, but it also has decoy flares, which is basically just fake barrage. Doesn't fire the 25-pounder at all. It just puts 3 smokes. It looks identical to a 25-pounder. It is not. And it can be really good to sort of fake out your enemy, force them to retreat, or force them to move, in which you can close the distance and potentially decrew that weapon. Now, moving back to the 6-pounder. Whatever.
I think we're up, lads.
Actually, no, we're done with the 6-pounder now. No, the sort of main unit, I don't typically recommend it to newer players because it's a tricky unit to use, it's awfully squishy, is the Humber. So it's partially immune to small arms, but not really. It doesn't take a lot of small arms damage, but it can take damage and die to small arms. So keep that in mind. Don't be super aggressive with it. If you get snared, you're probably going to lose the bloody thing. Like I said, it's extremely squishy, but it's very good. It dishes out a lot of damage. It's very good at harassing other light vehicles and countering some, such as the unupgraded 221 scout car, the 259 DAC half tracks, and it can actually do damage to medium vehicles as well. However, I wouldn't typically advise putting your Humber in a situation where it ever has to fight a medium vehicle, because 9 times out of 10 that medium vehicle is going to kill you first, i.e. 8 rads will kill you, Flak Panzer Whirlwinds will also kill you, Marders will also kill you. There is a neat little trick with the Marder actually, where you can just go around and around in circles and the gun can never align, so you'll kill it eventually if it doesn't have support. It has smoke, so it has directional smoke to this turret. Now, a very annoying thing to know is that you cannot smoke and move with this unit. It has to stop and stand still, and then its turret has to rotate and fire the smoke. Unlike another unit we'll get to eventually, being the Sherman, which is completely different. Yeah, so it outputs a lot of damage. It does have a machine gun attached to its main cannon as well, so it gives that extra little bit of short range firepower. Veterans is good, but negligible. But its main is the juicy part comes from its veteran, more so of an eventuality than in if, but and maybe if you're a competent player. So you don't have to rotate the turret. You can literally just throw this, and this entire circle makes units easy to hit. As you can see, 20% easy to hit, and it's on a cooldown of 2 minutes. So any units inside it, just sort of, yeah, they're easy to deal with essentially. It also gives you permanent vision of the area until the flare disappears. It's a very competent, nice little unit. And it also can reveal nearby camouflaged units. In which case, if it does do that, you're probably still going to lose it, because half, if not the majority of stealth units in this game have some form of anti-tank capabilities. Panzerjäger being a primary example of them. And then the last sort of, the base kit sort of roster, without getting the upgrades, is the CMP truck. So it comes in 3 different variants. So the base CMP truck has no armament. All it does is reinforce infantry. As you can see with its Veterans 1, just minus 10% cost to effects of infantry, which is okay, but it's one of those things where it's whatever, who cares. It's very boring. You're mostly using this in big team games with a reinforcement, with a forward retreat point cache to minimise the walk time and just upgrade it into a medical half-track. Of which, the medical half-track does the same thing as the base CMP truck, but it also heals on top of reinforcing. Same vet one, but it heals as well. It does have the passive support veterancy, so if it's nearby to units, it will gain veterancy automatically. The Pulsum is the last unit, or the last upgrade that comes from this unit. Now, I don't have a good relationship with the Pulsum, because I can never use this thing. I think it sucks at what it's supposed to do, and does even worse outside of its capabilities of being an anti-infantry unit. So, this is basically the base kit UKF anti-air. It's directional, it's not omnidirectional, so it's like 180 degrees. It cannot fire front, it has to turn to deal with units in front of it. It's obviously an A unit, so it can shoot down planes with its A stance. The sort of best thing that comes with this is that once it's stationary, it gets a lot of range. As you can see here, this big white checkered circle, this is its range. If I move it, you can see now that this range is severely reduced until it stands still. Which makes it similar to an MG, but I personally just don't like this thing. I think it's a bunch of garbage. However, I know of people that get great use out of this, so it must just simply be a skill issue. The Veterans unit is frag round. It's solid. It deals with infantry very well. But infantry should typically never get close to this thing anyways, and they should always be in range of a 6-pounder or some form of anti-tank gun. Now, the platoon command post, unique to sort of Brits. Well, not really, but the platoon command post has 2 upgrades. So you have the unlock upgrades, which is you unlock the Stuart and you unlock the Bishop. Now, this does not mean once you buy these upgrades that you automatically get one of them. No, you have to buy the upgrade and then you have to make the vehicle. So, if you tech Stuart, you have to buy Stuart as well. If you tech Bishop, you have to buy Bishop as well. Speaking of the Stuart. So, this guy is immune to small arms, which means it cannot take damage from standard rifle fire, machine guns, mortars, I dare say. I think you can take a little bit of trick damage from mortars, but I'm not too certain on that. But that doesn't matter because you shouldn't be getting hit by mortars with this thing. And it has crush, so it can get rid of some minor obstacles in the way. All the vehicles previously don't have crush, and therefore they can get really fucked with the movement, and it can be a ball ache. So, best case scenario, don't get stuck. Now, the Stuart is your sort of mid-game tank. This is more so a unit to help you keep yourself alive, rather than taking the fight to the enemy, I suppose. Depending on your situation. It's a good tank though. With the most recent patch down to 5, the Stuart's anti-infantry performance got buffed, and it's in a pretty good state right now, I'd say. So I might have to eat those words. I haven't tried it too much yet. I'm a massive Humber fan. I think Humber 9 times out of 10 is good. But there are certain situations where you are going to need a Stuart. If you are a bit of a novice player, which this video is intended for, I would definitely text to it. It'll help you it keeps you alive. It gives you that armoured fighting sort of power, and it has good utility with its upgrades as well. Speaking of its upgrades, so it has 2 upgrades. You have the survival package, which gives you smoke. So if I make this just a tiny bit easier for you guys. Should have thought of this earlier, but I have a small brain. So we go to M3 Stuart. So we have So we have 2 upgrades with the Stuart. We have the survival package, which allows you to smoke. This will stop units from automatically attacking, but this doesn't necessarily mean it cannot take damage. If an anti-tank gun attack grounds, which, by the way, another thing I've completely forgotten to touch on. Apologies, I've completely blanked. So let's say the enemy smokes, like that stupid.
Right, we're ready. Split the trails.
You might think, oh well, now it's escapes and I can't do anything about it. However, you are completely wrong. You see this on my grid keys, the attack ground. I can attack ground this area. So even though my anti-tank gun cannot automatically fire at a smoked unit, it will still fire. Now, it does have scatter, and sometimes, if not always, I'm joking, but it does miss. It will not always hit your target, so bear that in mind and be careful. But this is a great way to sort of finish off tanks that have dived and then thought they could get away by smoking. That's not the case.
Ready for trouble.
But moving back to the story. On top of the smokes, you also get self-repair, which is the laserman's way of just sending it back after it's been damaged to just heal itself, and have your sappers do whatever else they're doing. So it has attack ground 2. Most of the vehicles, if not all of them, have it if they have a weapon. Same logic applies to them as they would the anti-tank gun when it comes to smoke and obscurities. They also have horde fire. All vehicles have horde fire, so this you can use this to when an anti-tank gun loses line of sight of you. If you back up into the fog of war, but are still firing, that anti-tank gun is still going to have a line of sight on you by technicality. Not line of sight, but it has the ability to still shoot you if it has line of sight. And you have to be careful with that. And then there's the commander's upgrade. So, the commander is your support tactical option. As you can see, it grants a passive buff, which grants nearby infantry 10% accuracy and reload speed and vision range, which can be really helpful for spotting out threats to the Stuart, i.e. anti-tank guns, cloaked anti-tank guns, tank destroyers as well. It's a very good, and I also think this one's a bit slept on. I think this is incredibly great and can really punish medium vehicle play if done correctly. So you have the recon scan as the first sort of option. Obviously, this doesn't help a lot because you can see the entire map, but it basically gives you a lot more vision range. Now, it does make this vehicle a lot slower, so bear that in mind. And then it also has marked vehicle. So as you can see, you click this on one of the enemy vehicles. You can see on my screen, it's very faint, but there's a little like sort of red triangle thing. And all that does is it makes the unit 50% easier to hit. It takes more penetration and it takes more damage. For some of the people that might know, this is similar to the captain's old mark ability. Mark vehicle ability, which is just completely bonkers. However, at least this one is locks behind munitions. Something to also note, again, with all vehicles, you can move, and then you can also reverse move using R or whatever button that might be. Units with all vehicles have a rare armor, in which they'll take more damage from. Especially anti-tank guns. So as you can see on the portrait, you have the front, which is green. They take no bonus damage. Sidearm is yellows. I think they take a bit more damage, and then rear they take a lot more damage. So never show your ass to the enemy, ever. Even if you know you're going to lose that unit, just never show it. Just never. Now, the Bishop. What a vehicle. This thing, for the longest time, has been the bane of my existence. It is an incredibly strong, indirect option for the UKF. And as you can see, it has some pretty solid range. There's the red circle. So as you can see, lots of range. Same logic applies with a mortar, in which the scatter is there. As you can see. Big explosion. It's very good for dealing with team weapons, anti-tank guns, MGs, mortars, field howitzers, you know, all of that jazz. Next up, well, before that, the Bishop is incredibly squishy. 160 health. This thing will die to almost anything. It'll die to small arms too, so keep that in mind. Whilst it's sort of whatever, kind of negligent, it does have a direct fire mode, in which case it can deal with targets directly very quickly. This is more so to be a deterrent, because if this is a vehicle that's diving you, this is going to do nothing and you're just going to straight die. So never keep these guys on the front line, always pay attention to them, even keep a hotkey on them too, because you'll be able to check in your cooldowns very regularly. And that will do it for the platoon command post. Now, finally, we have the company command post. Now, this is your end game for Brits, and in my humble opinion, I think this is the best base late game you can get. With the options it provides. So, something to know about the company command post immediately before we even look at any of the units is the withdraw and refit vehicle. So this, as of Daring Defy now, it cannot be applied to light vehicles and ultralights. This only affects medium vehicles. So it doesn't affect the Bishop, does not affect the Stuart, but it does affect your Crusader, Matilda, Grant, and battle group similarities. So, with that out of the way, let's get on to the first tier 3 unit.
His Majesty's finest. Here, let's get a ladder on.
Guards. Now these guys suck. Or more so that they're incredibly situational to the point where they suck. So, things to know about guards. 6 men of 110 health, 115 health. But they have some of the strongest CQC in the game. I'm pretty sure it's unmatched. They do more than Rangers. However, on a model by model basis, for every model they drop, their damage output is reduced significantly. Because weapons, like the Bren, like bazookas, and any other unit that has a weapon upgrade or a weapon picked up from another unit, they will take priority over regular weapons, and thus, if you get to 2 men, you're only going to have bazookas, and you're going to have no anti-infantry capabilities, and these guys are going to be useless, because they do not get bazooka upgrades, which makes them better. Now, that being said, they do make up for that in other ways. So they can breach, which is alright. If any vehicle, any buildings survive to the point at which breach is still relevant, then it can be good. On top of that, it does have focus fire vehicles. This should typically always be on. Okay, bazookas are going to do nothing to infantry. There's the gammon bomb, which is an upgraded version of a standard grenade. I'll show you a small comparison. So you see big explosion there compared to a rifle grenade, which is a lot more smaller of an impact. But as you can see, the blast radius is pretty small. This one will do a lot more damage, and it's definitely a lot more lethal. But the rifle grenade is cheaper. I lied, they're the same cost, which is pretty funny. Shows you how much I know.
We have our destination, lads.
But on top of that, the guards scale very nicely. 40% heads hit, rate of fire, health and damage. Nothing to scoff at. But the guard unit itself is intensely situational. One other thing to know about the guard, at veterans you want to get stagger shot, which is basically just an incredibly amazing snare. It slows and then stops the vehicle. It is one of the best snares in the game by far. That being said, you have to get your guards to Vet 1. Now, this is pretty easy, considering infantry training gives you 800, so technically you only need 400 to vet these guys to Veterancy 1. All in all, a good unit, but for 400 manpower and the battle groups you can have, there are definitely better options. And these guys kind of feel lackluster in a lot of situations, especially in a team's environment where it's going to be a lot more headbutt and there isn't as great as opportunity for ambushing. Now, the Crusader is the British generalist tank. Incredibly fast, with a 2-pounder gun. It's not too bad. It does great against infantry, has a very fast fire rate. Its anti-infantry performance is, like I said, it's very good, and the vehicle performance is okay too. It's nothing to write home about, because it will bounce. It is only a 2-pounder after all, but it's alright. For 300 manpower and 70 fuel, this is probably one of the most effective bang for buck tanks out there. Maybe aside the Panzer III. But generally, with armoured vehicle training, this thing is a monster. Now, it does have an upgrade, which is the 6-pounder, which turns it into Crusader 3. So, the TLDR is, it does more damage against vehicles, but has a slower rate of fire, and it no longer does good against infantry. So the Crusader is a very specialised tank, and you kind of have to upgrade it based on your preferences. But do note, if you do upgrade this unit to a 6-pounder, you cannot revert it back. You can refit it and get it back, and then make another Crusader or Matilda. However, you cannot change its gun again after you've upgunned it. Now, as it's for its Veterancy 1. Veterancy 1 is critical for dives, especially with masked Crusaders, or as it's more colloquially known as the Crusader train. Charge gives it a lot more speed, acceleration, and rate of fire. This thing essentially becomes a monster. And it's even with this, it becomes a very decent brawler tank too. Aside that, it's a very generalist. Oh, not generalist. It's not a generalist tank. It's definitely specialised, but it's definitely one of the top sort of 3 specialised tanks in the game, I feel, in my humble opinion. The other tank that you do not need to tech is it is the UK's heavy tank. It's very good at supporting your infantry, dealing with emplacements. It'll deal with emplacements too, pretty decently. A lot of frontal armor too, so you definitely need AT guns to deal with this thing. You can't rely on handheld AT. And it's, like I said, it's a very good support tank. It comes with infantry smoke, which essentially just makes a lot of smoke behind it. So this can be applied in 2 ways. When the vehicle is low and you need to reverse, this is good. Or if you reverse it, you can get some sappers on it whilst you're repairing it, and the sappers are untargetable. But remember what I said earlier. Just because it's untargetable does not mean it cannot take damage, because it very well can, and you will lose your sappers if they're not veteran C2. So bear that in mind. Aside that, its veteran C1 is pretty okay. It's also like a negligible thing, not as great as the Crusaders, but it's definitely alright. You know, it removes engine damage and immobilization criticals. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, when out of combat. So it can deal with it like the engine criticals and stuff like that, but it will not repair itself. Now on the company command post, there's also 2 other techs. So you have the 17-pounder, which is towed. This thing cannot move, as you can see. It has to be towed by this vehicle. It cannot be towed by a dingo either. So, bear that in mind. Now this thing has a lot of range, and it does a lot of damage. As you can tell, it's very beefy too. The good thing with a 17-pounder is that it'll always come with a CMP truck. So, let's say it gets a bit too close, you drop 1 or 2 models. The model drop doesn't affect its performance, but you can reinforce those models. And it just generally keeps the 17-pounder alive, gives it a lot of presence. Now this,
3 tons
I
of
wouldn't
mismanaged
make
steel here.
into a spam. This is more so generally used to counter other heavy tanks, such as, but not limited to, the Elephant TD, Tiger heavy tank, and King Tiger, as well as the Storm Tiger, the most recent addition to the Axis heavy tank pool. I find myself not making this too much into Panthers, if at all. I feel like it's better to just crutch on your 6-pounders with some vehicle support. But the 17-pound is very good. It has entrenchment, so it kind of sucks with its veterancy or active veterancy. I rarely, if at all, ever use entrenchment on the 17-pounder, because this thing wants to be mobile. The minute you stay still with this, it's going to get bombed by Stukers, Nebelwerfers, any off maps. Generally, the Axis do not like these things, and they will make every account to get rid of them. But this means they can get careless, in which case this thing will punish it. But overall, it's generally hated on a bit too much, I feel. But at the same time, battle groups like Australians with the Archer Tank Destroyer, which do the same thing but it's on wheels, and the Polish cavalry's Sherman VC Firefly do this guy's job a lot better. So it's kind of, it's sort of a whatever unit, but definitely not something to sleep on. And finally, for the UKF's based roster, we have the Grant.
How many guns do you need? We got them.
Now, the Grant is top 3 medium tank, in my opinion, in the game. When it comes to base rosters, at least.
Armor ready, eager and willing.
It's got 2 guns, So you have the 57mm hull. It is a casemate, by the way, so the vehicle has to turn with the gun in order for it to fire. But the turret at the top is not. The turret is 360, but it is only a lighter guns, and thus it cannot do too much. But this thing is very good. The veterancy makes it incredibly strong to a head button, 30% rate of fire, but it is slower and does rotate slower, so you do have to be a bit careful. It does have a couple of, I think it has 2 or 3 MGs with a coaxial on top of that. Overall, this thing is a monster, and Grant's band can get out of hand pretty quickly, so bear that in mind. But these guys are expensive. They did get nerfed with their cost being 100, but they did also get some minor buffs as well. So these guys, definitely don't underestimate them. Even the 2-pounder will do a lot of damage. But that's the base British roster. Now that was a lot. And we still have 3 more factions to go. So I'm going to take a minor break, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so we've covered Brits, the easiest faction to play for a beginner. Now, I think the second easiest faction to play as of this patch is Whermact. So let's get into it. So Whermact follows a slightly different system. Instead of Brits being, you know, Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, Tech 0, they have 4 techs, but not in a traditional sense. So they have Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, and Tech 4. But there's also a Tech 2.5, which we'll get to, and there's Tech 3.5. But we'll start slow. So we have the Pioneer, which is somewhere over here in this massive units.
Let's tackle the Germans.
I wish I set this up in the
4x4 is ready to roll.
Okay. We have the
Put
Pioneer.
us to work. Starting
Humble
the
Pioneer.
advance.
As you can see, unlike the Sapper, it's a 3-man, and it has MP40s. This guy is really bad in combat, and is more so used as support infantry. Now, typically, with a Pioneer, you'll pair this with Grenadiers in the early game, if you do Grenadier openers, and you'll use these guys to dish out the CQC damage. Now, whilst their CQC damage is not like Sappers, you know, Sappers being insane, it's pretty respectable, and it will do damage. And pairing them with a Pioneer is good, because they're cheaper to reinforce.
Silence! Grenadiers ready.
At least. But moving on. So these guys, yeah, their combat isn't great, but they do trade that out pretty well.
Looks like you've got solder in your eye. Take my canteen.
Okay.
Put us to work.
So they have increased vision, so they give you a lot more vision than what Sappers would. So they're definitely a better utility infantry. They have the flamethrower, which you're accustomed to, and the hazard remove package, which is the exact same as what the Sappers do. Something I did forget to touch on is that your Pioneers and most engineering units can make utility structures and sandbags and stuff like that. They can make mines, bunkers, caches, sandbags, wire, tank traps, fighting nests, and battle group structures and emplacements. The only other thing to know about the Pioneer is that its veterancy 1 gives it increased capture speed, does not affect decapture speed, but just standard capture speed. Now, the other unit is the Kettenkrad. Now, this humble little vehicle
Ready to scout.
has a UKF men inside it. In fact, all of them do, which is a bit strange. But anyways, moving on. The Kettenkrad is a exclusively support unit that does not have any armaments and therefore cannot be a threat to infantry and
Engines
vehicles.
warmed up.
However, that
What
being
do you
said,
need?
it is cheap. It is only 160 manpower. Yeah, 160 manpower. As you can see, it's very fast capture speed, so it's super good at just vacuum up the map. That being said, do not make any more than 2 of these, or 1 of these, because then you give up your, you can take all the map, but if they just walk and take your cut off, you can't really do anything about it, and vice versa. So the Kettenkrad, it does take small arms. It gains veterancy for capturing and decapturing territory, which is exclusive only to a very few units. It can reveal camouflage, which against the allies is actually pretty decent. With SSB commandos, Royal Marines commando, and SSF commandos as well, being quite a bit of a problem sometimes. So this guy is really good. You can also spot out for your MG42, which is pivotal in some scenarios, and it can also work as very decent anti-flank. Where is the little bugger? Here he is.
Ready to scout.
So things to know.
Kettenkrad
Gives you the
observing
recon
the
vision.
area.
Yes, you can't see it. That's right. There we go. So as you can see,
Moving to our
if
destination.
you move this little guy over here.
Orders proceeding to new
So
coordinates.
it has a lot of vision, gives you a lot of sight lines.
Slowing to halt.
This gives it increased vision range at the cost of
Scanning the area. Engines off.
look how far you can see. Trade-offs being that you can't see to either side of you, so if they just hold fire and walk at you and toss
Ready
grenades,
to
you'd
scout.
never know. So just be
Only
careful.
complete.
But it can really help out your MGs.
Ready to scout.
Aside that, can lay mines, trip flares, which are exclusive to this
Give
unit,
us our
which are
orders.
very cheap and very good. There's also standard mines, and then at Veterancy 1, it gains camouflage,
We go
which can be
anywhere
very
we are
useful
needed.
in a lot of scenarios, especially when anti-tank sort of rifles ever make the appearance. Also has communication cable as upgrade. If I'm going Ketten, I'll typically buy this. It gives a lot of vision, and that's the main thing for it. Whilst the capture rate and decapture rate are good, this more so is important in a 1v1/2v2 setting than it is a big team game, which this is what it's sort of aimed for, this sort of guide. The comms cables is very
Orders?
good, and definitely not something
Ready to
to
scout.
sleep on
Ready
either.
to scout.
That does it. You can buy in-base heals for 200 manpower, which costs no fuel, which is a big upside compared to the Allied and DAC healing options. However, there are also better options for Whermact to heal. And now we get into definitely the more juicier part of it. Actually, I already have it set up anyway, so that's fine. So, Grenadiers. These are your mainline
You
infantry.
need us?
Now, these are arguably, not so arguably, the worst combat mainline in the game. At 6 man, 1800 health, these guys suck at combat against other mainlines. They'll lose to riflemen, they'll lose to sections, they'll lose to some pseudo mainlines sometimes. Like, I've seen them lose to Pathfinders, to be honest. However, they're an incredibly important utility unit. They have an okay grenade. You don't have to tech grenades, by the way. As of recent, Whermact get their standard grenades as soon as you have the munitions available to them. They can they also have one of the best snares in the game. So they're incredibly dangerous to dives. And they can also make basic fortifications, sandbag, wire, and fine nests. Grenadiers
Men are ready.
also have the ability to merge. So let's say, i.e., your Pioneer. Whoops. He loses 2 models fighting,
You need
and
us?
you're fighting a Rifleman. Now,
Grenadiers.
merging allows the
Grab your gear.
Grenadier to take models from its own
Commandant.
squad and attach it to the other squad.
on it.
These
Get
models
to it.
become mirror
You
replicants
need
of what
tools.
the squad they merged
Here
into
we
was.
are.
So for the Pioneer, these guys are still
Pioneers ready.
they're 295
Send word. Over.
HP models with an SMG, as you can see. Does not change their health, does not change their damage. They're just mirror models of the units they're replacing.
Waiting on. Let's
And
go,
this is good for the manpower economy because
moving.
these guys are cheap too at 25 manpower compared to a Sapper which was 29 and a Tommy which is 32-ish. Very cheap mainland.
Silence.
On top of that, a Vet 1 gives them medkits which allows them to heal. And for Whermact, acquiring your Veterans 2-1 is very easy. As you can see in the infantry company, you have this ability called Infantry Officer Quarters. A quick TLDR is you basically buy veterancy. So all the units that you produce in here, as well as your HQ units, and this is only for infantry company by the way, all the units inside the infantry company and your headquarters gain veterancy 1, as well as increasing their veterancy earn rate by 25%. This affects, as you can see, battle group units as well, such as coastal reserves, stern pioneers, and there's one more, Fortune pioneers as well. Which gives them more veterans 1, increases their veterancy gain, incredibly useful. I typically always buy infantry companies officer quarters. It's very important for the scaling of Whermact units. On top of the Grenadier,
You have orders?
we have the MG42. Now this thing is an absolute machine. It has the fastest suppression time out of every single MG in the game, besides the 50 cal, I think. But I think it's very close. They do very good damage, and their veterancy 1 allows them to deal with light vehicles as well. It's very good play. It is a team weapon, so these guys have to pack. And if you kill this unit, the weapon drops. So be careful.
Stoßfallen. We have marching order. That machine gewehr will work nicely. Grab it. What you got for us? Shock troop, confirm location. MG, say the word.
Very good unit. Something to keep in mind: MGs have to be reloaded.
Reload.
So if they
While we
fire,
can.
you have to reload it. As you can see, expert reload animation, incredible relic.
MG, say
But
the word.
they are actually surprisingly pretty hard to reinforce. Typically, your grenadiers will be merging into these
MG,
guys to
say the
keep
word.
their lifespan on the
Orders.
battlefield,
Jump to it, lads.
rather than retreating back to base. This is
MG,
the
say the
42
word.
is also incredibly important for the Whermact survival in the early game. Unless you blob around with your grenadiers, in which case it's okay, but the 42 is one of 2 arguments I'll make for a case of an MG scaling very well into
Back
the
it
late
up,
game.
lads. We've got orders.
42 good basically. There's also the mortar. For the most part, most of the mortars are the same, with very minor differences. This one can fire a flare, which gives you vision.
We're getting better at this.
We're moving.
So you see, I'll just fire my flare here. You have to set up the mortar first. Just always remember that your team weapons always have to set up. They can't just instantly fire.
It's done.
But yeah, you get a flare. It gives you a nice bit of patch of vision for a short
Get off your asses.
duration. Now, the last unit in the infantry company is not a unit I'd recommend at all. This is a very tricky unit with very high price to sort of fail ratio, and that is the sharpshooter. Where is it?
Ready to hunt.
So the sharpshooter, by default, he's a concealed unit. So if he goes into cover, he's going to be invisible and cannot be detected unless he fires or is a unit close by or a detector. A sniper will always kill an infantry model. It will not do damage to vehicles, but it will always kill an infantry model. It doesn't matter if it's a sapper, a pioneer, a guard, Stormtrooper, elite infantry. It will always one-shot a unit. But the fire rate is very slow. And not every sniper is created equally. This sniper, for example, his veterancy one is pinning. It's actually the better of the other snipers. It definitely helps with it being a bit more of a utility unit. But overall, it's a tricky unit to use. And being a singular model, it's very easy to focus down, kill, and remember, it's 340 manpower. This guy is expensive. Actually, no, it's 320. I lied again. Yeah, he's very expensive.
You need a problem removed?
You have to keep him alive the entire game to get good value out of it. It's such a micro-taxing unit. It's honestly not worth it, especially for the newer players. Even myself, you know, I sit around 1650-ish ELO, and I hate using this thing. I think all the base snipers are just trash, and I just don't like them as of in their current state. But moving on. So, here we have Tech 2. Now, Tech 2 and Tech 3, so basically now is that Tech 2 and Tech 3 are more so, they can either be a stepping stone or you can play hard into the tech. For example, Tech 2, you can get support elements, which allows you to play into your 2.5 units, and essentially you'll stay on 2.5 for the majority, if not the entire game. For Tier 3.5 it's a bit weird because you don't really want to be making Stug. You'd much rather be making Panzer. But it depends, I suppose. But getting back to the point. So, 2.5. First unit is Jaeger.
Awaiting a target. Watch your step.
5-man, 110 health, with car rifles. Pretty sure they're car. G43s. I don't know. I don't know what they are. The gist of Jaegers is that they're a very good anti-infantry unit, as of right now. Without any upgrades, they do good into other infantry. And you can, for all Whermact infantry, by the way, except this guy, you can merge into the squad, so you don't have to take the manpower losses, and you can keep the unit on the field and out of base. The Jaeger is a bit of a weird unit, to be honest, in the sense that it's kind of your main line, I suppose. Grenadiers don't scale that well as a combat infantry unit into the late game. So these guys basically replace your main line, either through transfer orders or making them. I'm not playing Whermact right now, but typically on this left-hand side of the screen above your map, you'll have something called transfer orders, in which case your Grenadiers can be transferred into either Jaeger or Panzer Grenadier. Typically, if I play Whermact, I'll go like 1 MG, 3 Grens, and I will transfer 2 of the Grens into Jaeger. Or I'll keep 2 Grens, but it really depends on the situation, faction, matchup, and battle groups. Jaegers can be upgraded, but even without the upgrades, they'll get a smoke rifle grenade, which can be very helpful for doing team weapons and manoeuvring around them. It is free, but it is 3 minute cooldown. So, first thing we have is scoped Jaegers. Now, scoped Jaegers
Who wants to be a sharpshooter?
get a flare, same as the recce section, and it's also free. but it also does have an extensive cooldown of they do maintain the smoke rifle grenade as well. These guys perform better in cover, better against cover, and they have a pretty solid 20% capture and decapture speed. This can help them with dealing with like cutoffs, but it also can help them spot out units on the flank as well. But they're also a good combat headbutt sort of infantry. His other variant is anti-tank. Now, the Panzerschreck is a lot better than Bazooka in the sense that it doesn't need upgrades to be good. It's a very solid anti-tank capability. It has good range too. But attack ground with through smoke, much like the anti-tank gun, has a bit of scatter. It can be unreliable. You can take a shot with attack ground and through smoke, but don't get your hopes up because it's from misses a lot. Do bear in mind that you do get rid of your smokes as well. Unlike the regular scope vehicles, you do not get smoke capabilities. So you cannot just smoke an MG and walk at the vehicles. For both of these units, veterans who run slow fire, essentially infantry hit, they become slower, and the damage effect refreshes every time that infantry unit is hit. Very, very basic, straightforward unit, and it's just very reliable overall. Next unit, 221. This is a very annoying little unit, very nimble, lots of utility. The MG performs very well into infantry. It's a very strong threat for the timing. Like, you can get this thing as early as like 3.5, 4 minutes sometimes. It's a very potent threat. It's also a detector, so it detects stealth units. It's very straightforward. The base 221 is just super straightforward. It's a very easy unit to use, but it also is very squishy, and it is hard countered. Sorry, it is soft countered by a Humber. No, it is hard countered by a Humber without its Panzerboxer. This thing can't do any damage to any other light vehicles without that. Now, the 221 has radio antenna. Essentially, any vehicles in this radius will be pointed at, well, not vehicles, sorry, any unit inside, whether it's any enemies inside it, will be pointed out with a little exclamation mark and a circle. And this also shows up on your map. So, for example,
Awaiting orders, Commandant.
If I just let's put this here. And transfer it. You'll see, as we scan, you'll see this. And this is the same for infantry. This little circle on the map. There is a unit there. And it does track moving units too. So, bear that in mind. It's very good for spotting out, and it's very difficult to kill too. Because it even spots out cloaked units. So, it's just such a good information tool, especially when you're using indirect, like the Noble Warfare and your teammates' Stukas. The other upgrade, which you can get both by the way, and it is a toggleable option as well by the way is the Panzerbox, which sacrifices its anti-infantry capability to deal damage to light vehicles. This also can do some pretty respectable damage to vehicles like Crusader, but if a Crusader ever gets on top of a 221, you're going to lose it, because 9 times out of 10 this thing is going to die to it. It does come with a white phosphorus, not white phosphorus, it comes with a blinded shot, so it can help it escape, but overall, if you upgrade to a Panzerboxer, you're just trying to get rid of like any Humbers or try and ward off any potential dives from like a ground. Other than that, its Veterans 1 gives it extra vision, so on top of having a radio tank giving it extra vision as well, it can be a very, very tricky unit to sort of kill, especially when Whermact are really like set up and dug in, especially with their like camo AT guns. They'll more often than not use this as bait to lure you into trying to kill it, and then you might lose a unit, so just keep that in mind, be very careful around these units, and try to respect them. Final unit is arguably the best one in the Luftwaffe's base roster, and that is the Flak 30.
Indirect fire team.
Now this thing got buffed recently, so it has an additional 10 health per model. So it's incredibly tanky now. On top of having AA capabilities, it can also be towed. I never find myself needing to tow this thing because you can just walk with it and you can see.
Flag gun moving to position. Flag,
and it does pretty decent into light vehicles. So this is a soft counter to light vehicles. It's a hard counter as Humbers. Humbers will die to this thing. They'll get chewed up and killed very quickly. But vehicles like the Stuart, the Greyhound, and the Shafi are more so a soft counter. They will take damage from it, but you don't have to respect it as much as a Humber, as well as other light vehicles. Some things to note. So this is an anti-infantry weapon as well. It has some really solid range, and it can also suppress with an ability. The bottom vehicle is alright. It's more so used to help your vehicles close distance and secure a kill, but it's not really worth putting the munitions in to try. Flak's just very straightforward. It can also attack ground, but the thing to note is that attack grounded right on the mark will more often than not be working against you. So make sure you do it like a little bit after where you're trying to shoot. Not that much. Like if you're shooting here, maybe you want to go like here. The shots can be a bit weird. But this is a very good weapon. And you can also use the same trick, use grenadiers to merge into it and to keep it alive and on the field. But you have to be careful, because if this falls into the enemy hands, it's no longer going to be their problem, it's going to be your problem. Moving on to 2.5, through the support elements upgrade, you'll get access to the Whirlwind Flak Panzer and the Martyr. So, the Whirlwind is a anti-aircraft, anti-infantry vehicle capable of doing some damage to light vehicles, but it shouldn't be fighting most light vehicles. I used to at Shafi. Humber and ground is where you can kind of get away with it, but this guy is basically going to be cooking infantry left, right and centre. You can attack ground like most vehicles. It's a very potent vehicle. With its white phosphorus rounds, it can help deal with some minor targets. It can also, I'm pretty sure it suppresses infantry in cover too, so just be careful. Yeah, deals suppression damage, you can see. And then you can hold down it as well. I typically don't hold down this though, because your Whirlwinds want to be mobile, they want to be getting stuff down and dealing as much damage as they possibly can. So you just want to keep that in mind. It's a very straightforward unit too. AA, anti-infantry, it's not a complex unit and it can get a lot done. On top of the Whirlwind, you get the Martyr. Now this guy is very scary. It's your main way of dealing with allied heavy tanks when you're playing 2.5, but it's a great tank destroyer in general. It has a lot of range, as you can see. I think it has a little bit more than an AT gun, but has less peripheral range. On top of that, Fair Strike as well, excellent Veteran C1 ability, 25% just flat more damage, accuracy and penetration. It makes it a very strong unit. It's another very straightforward unit too. It's tank destroyer, it's built to make tanks, don't get it close to anti-tank, don't get it close to infantry, and it'll do its job perfectly. It's more so used to zone out, it's more of a passive tank destroyer. Make sure you properly support it, otherwise it will get dived and killed, because it is a very relatively squishy vehicle. I think the final thing I wanted to touch on, aside the fact that it also gets quarters, is side skirts. So some Axis vehicles, not all, will get side skirts. In which case, it gives them a little bit more side armor, as you can see. So it gives them the same as the front armor. As you can see, it does not affect the Martyr, but it affects the majority of the Whermact vehicles. Tier 3. So Tier 3 is more so used as a means to stall into your Tier 4 or battle group options. It's not really a company that's used to close a game, because it doesn't really have a lot of things to close with. It's a very sort of stall tactic sort of thing. And thus we'll start with, where are they?
What do you have for us?
Panzer Grenadiers. So, 5-man, 115 health. Very tanky units. Very scary too. They have STGs, MP44s in the co-stats. Great CQC damage. Decent mid-range damage too with their veterancy. And just a very good scaling unit. They're definitely scary. You don't want to get close to these guys. And if you do, chances are you're going to lose the fight under special circumstances and or units. Ever bundle grenade? Similar to the gammon bomb. Big explosion radius. Does a lot of damage, will kill infantry. These guys don't get weapon upgrades, but they make up for the fact in veterancy. In which case they're like 40% higher to hit. They just become absurd at veterancy too. Definitely a scary unit. They can breach too, so they're able to deal with sort of riflemen in a solid way, in the sense that, you know, you can just play breach tag, hopping in and out of buildings, breaching. And you can also push like sections out of buildings too. It's a very, very strong unit. The veterancy, as you can see, increases the rate of fire every 3 seconds to a maximum of 100%. Reduces movement speed to 35% by a maximum of 70%. Typically, if you activate this, you want to make sure that you're in cover and you're dishing out damage. Or if you're against an unfavorable fight with like rifleman double bar, pop this, you'll win the fight. Trust. If you get a grenade thrown out of you, you're not going to be able to dodge, so you either have to eat it, which is, unless you're winning the fight and you know you're going to win the fight, just retreat the unit. It's not worth the bleed, it's not worth the damage, and typically, if they throw a grenade, there's going to be some sort of follow-up, either from a light vehicle standing there, getting close by and pushing in to finish the unit, or some form of indirect. But you want to be careful. But these guys, you have to respect them. They're a great unit. I do a similar thing in the sense that, you know, you can transfer audio grenadiers into panzer grenadiers. The veterancy from the grenadiers transfers over into both of these units, by the way, and you can get a lot of tempo going with that. Moving on, the next unit, the Pack, which is the Whermact's main anti-tank gun. Standard, just like the 6-pounder, but it has a major difference in the fact that its veterancy one is actually good. So it can camouflage, makes it invisible, so it can't be seen. And when it fires, it gets first strike, which means it just does more damage. The trade-off being that you can't see, similar to like how the Kettenkrad, with the scopes, you can't see very well either side, so it's very easy to creep on. Well, unless they exactly know where you are, this is just very good for sort of one shot on a Humber and like zoning off a Stuart very well. Very straightforward unit. 251 carrier, similar to the CMP truck. It reinforces units, but it has an MG on top. This MG is actually pretty respectable, so just be careful. It's actually pretty decent for frontal armor. It has good health too at 320, and it automatically reinforces nearby infantry. It also gets support veterancy passive, which allows it to receive veterancy from units thereby, in the sense of when they're dealing damage and or killing models and stuff like that. It can tow weapons, and it can recruit weapons like the CMP truck. Now, I am pop capped, as you can see. However, if there's like an abandoned team weapon or a team weapon that's been decrewed, you can just use this ability for 50 manpower and recruit it. More often than not, it's going to be cheaper to use this than it is to actually recruit with your infantry. But it does have a cooldown. You can actually spam this, so keep that in mind. The veterancy one it shares with the medical half-track is the Regal Mine, also known as the Big Mine, which, if a vehicle ever goes over one of these, that vehicle's gone, dead. It's over for that guy. You'll never see him again. In fact, just to make a point, we'll show you.
Snap later.
So, there it is.
Vehicle advancing.
We'll actually put this guy back in. We'll use a Panzer. I think a Panzer is good. So, we just change this guy over. Oh, it's a model. Okay, maybe that's not such a good idea. Let's try that. Put a mine down. Okay. We'll totally just pretend that didn't happen. Immortality is off. Yeah, just start rolling. As you can see, that's a lot of damage. And it's going to hurt. So, keep that in mind. Big man, big scary. I've got to quickly drift past these next bits, otherwise I'm not going to finish in time because I've got some other things to do. Stummel, the medical half track's the same as the CMP one, not much difference there. The Stummel is good, mortar half track sort of, not really. Deals with team weapons incredibly well. And has a blinding shot, which is it's more so of a get out of jail card than anything, or used to finish other vehicles that are low HP. Now, Stug, I'm going to quickly touch on, is like the Mara, short of range, can be upgraded with a 42 for some minor anti-infantry capabilities, but otherwise, pretty not great. It's very sort of whatever unit. And it is an anti-tank unit. Not to be confused with the Stug D, which is an anti-infantry mortar. Its veterancy is point blank blast. Another sort of whatever unit. If you're getting this close, you're going to get snared and potentially lose it, so be careful. Naval weapon. Similar to the Bishop, but not. Better with dealing with infantry, I guess, with its damage over time. Doesn't do so great into vehicles, but it will kill a Bishop, so you can use it for counter battery. The high explosives kind of just like whatever, who cares, it's not really that great. The damage over time is just a lot better than general life personally feel. And the Panzer Company. This is about as straightforward as it gets, I feel. Stormtrooping, 4-man, very great anti-infantry. These guys are nightmares for allied infantry. They're extremely difficult to kill. They have base kit damage reduction, as you can see, 15% less damage. They have grenade assault, in which case every model fires a grenade, and then they also have a white frost grenade, which is a smoke slash damaging. It damages infantry, that's it. So it's very good. As you can see, 44 manpower to reinforce. Always use grenadiers to reinforce these guys, but that should go without saying for all their Axis infantry. Veterancy, shock assault makes them immune to suppression. If they're already suppressed and not pinned, keep that in mind, not pinned, it will get them out of suppression, and it's very good with dealing with MGs and all that jazz. Definitely a scary unit. You have to respect this guy a lot. Typically want to deal with these guys with vehicles instead of infantry. Panzer IV, your general MBT. This guy, to be honest, is not that great. It does get side scares, which is a plus, but its performance against other tanks isn't that great. It doesn't have a lot of frontal armor. In fact, it has more side armor than it does frontal, which amazes me for some reason. I'm really confused by that. It can hold down, whatever. And focused fire, which is used for diving and securing kills. Brumbar. Now this guy is juicy. He's great. He'll deal with infantry like Swiss cheese. He's the best, arguably, well, actually not arguably. I'll stand my ground with this one, actually. This guy's the best anti-infantry killer in the game. Big howitzer mortar sort of thing. Bam. Infantry. It won't wipe him. Infantry, but just because it has an infantry model cap. But this guy is scary and he does a lot of damage. Typically want heavy anti-tank for this guy. You have to be really careful. If infantry get close with this, 9 times out of 10 against a competent player, you're going to lose that infantry. The Shatter Well is okay. I typically don't find myself using this a lot, to be honest though. Infantry should never be getting as close as that to the Stampanzer. But that's the two factions. I'm going to cover USF and DAC in a different video, more so because I have other things to do with them right now. But yeah, I hope that the information here helped a lot, or at least a little. If you have any questions, of course, for my friend group, you can message me on Discord, and for anyone else, just go in the comments. I'm happy to rectify any inaccuracies and answer any questions. But yeah, that's the rosters. Sorry the end was a bit abrupt, but we'll cover the rest in a separate video. I do promise that. And thank you for watching.